semi-final of the first KIDA IB. My name is Taeyeong Kim. Now I'm with the panelists DCA Albert and DCA Namchul Kim, and also Adita, Sia, and Drake, and Cho. So, all together we have CUDS 1. On the opposition we have Lam Chops. On the closing government we have KU 4. In the closing opposition we have FDU TKU. So on the motion, the disaster kill want to save many. So now let's invite the Prime Minister to start the debate.
Mr. Speaker, the motion before the House is one fucking hard choice. We believe that in a context in where trolley carts existed in a world such as the book called Justice, in a context in where a person had to make a choice of killing one person compared to millions and millions of lives that could have flourished in society, that could have flourished their individuality, we on Opening Government are proud to say that those individuals have a right to flourish though their own lives. I'm going to prove to you to do things in my speech today. First of all, I'm going to prove to you upon why life is such a crucial thing, and to some extent upon why life is always prioritized in the case of the government. And second of all, I'm also going to talk to you about why this specifically has to be about the numbers, and why the numbers are the most crucial thing that the government has to make a choice, and therefore that choice is always decided upon that particular number. Because we see a lot of case instances in the government in where they already prioritize particular numbers over the people living in the world, such as in the case of natural disasters, and where the government is in context of limited resources, and they always have to prioritize who they're going to save. In a context in where they can use their supplies to save many amounts of people, compared to a scenario where they can only save a few amount of people, governments will always prioritize the many amount of people, mainly because they also believe that numbers do matter, right? Because we obviously believe that numbers do matter, it is of utmost importance, and we're going to prove to you that, to you in our case today. Let's go into my first argument upon why life is such an important thing. Because we have to talk about the context, and we have to think about the idea of life. In the past, we believe that life was not important in a situation in where there was no such thing as a nation state. Mainly because without a nation state, no one follows laws, no one follows rules, no one gives a shit about who is dead and who is killed on the street. We believe that the moment in where a nation state was created was the moment where life was prioritized and life was actually brought. The benefits of a nation state and the ideas of an overall social contract is that you actually derive collective security and you derive collective actions and collective benefits upon that idea. And we obviously believe that there are many instances in which we sacrifice individual liberties for the sake and for the protection of overall society because we want to continuously go on with those collective benefits. What are we talking about? We are talking about instances and situations where a person has to go to war. When states go to war against each other, obviously the government has to prioritize the safety and the security of the people living in their own world. And therefore the government forces and takes away the individual liberty and the freedom of individuals to actually opt out of that particular war. Mainly because if these individuals opt out and they continuously opt out, and if you give them that option to opt out, then obviously that collective benefit is continuously going to decrease. Under that case scenario, under that situation, governments make a choice to prioritize the collective benefits and the collective security of the entire nation compared to a scenario in where you only prioritize individual liberties. We believe that that is the idea of the social contract, and where you actually serve your country, in which you provide benefits to your particular country, and in return you gain particular benefits. You gain the benefit of security, you gain the benefit of overall national identity, and we believe that that is a principle that we want to uphold on side opening government. Even in the case of heinous crimes, right? We obviously, in a case scenario in which we obviously kill another individual in that particular sense for the protection of overall society, right? The reason why we kill heinous criminals who have committed murder and serial killers, and the principle is that that one person threatens the lives of many people living in our society, right? That one serial killer could go out on the streets, kill many people, take away their individuality, and for the protection and the lives of the people living in our society and for the protection for them overall. We believe that that principle of killing that heinous criminal is obviously upheld, and it is something that we believe on opening government. Like, we obviously see that even in this particular case, governments always take into the numbers and always quantifies the amount of people that they actually give. Say, for example, in the case scenario in where a serial killer has killed many, many people, right? But the punishment is increased compared to the amount of people that you actually killed, right? So obviously, in this particular sense, the government is always prioritizing and always making sure that the quantification of the number of people that you kill is also something that you obviously add upon punishment. The government is already making that value choice. The government is always making that idea and saying that the amount of people that you kill is the amount of punishment that you receive. And if that's the case, we believe that quantification is something that we can actually prioritize. Opening.
Are you fine with using the name of national security to oppress your own citizens?
We believe that the idea of national security, in most instances, we believe that national security and oppressing your own people are two very different contexts in today's debate. Mainly because if you're talking about oppressing your own people, right? Going back. If you're talking about national security, the idea of national security is using and taking some individual liberties for the sake of the benefits of all individuals. If you are oppressing your own people and systematically taking away all of their rights, we believe that there's no benefit derived to those people that is actually directly being oppressed. We believe that is a completely different context. We believe that, like, POI is completely irrelevant. Let's go into my second argument about why particularly it has to be numbers, right? Because, Mr. Speaker, when you compare a trolley cart and if you compare a government choosing one person over many, many other individuals, we believe that governments cannot make a choice upon the values of that individual person living within that world. We believe that the value of an individual is extremely subjective, and it is not something that the government can actually prioritize, and it's not something that the government can prioritize. It is not something that the government can make a value judgment. And if that's the case, if the governments can't make that value judgment, then obviously prioritization actually has to occur in a case scenario in where numbers come into place. We believe that numbers are the most crucial factor that decide the individuality and the value of that individual life. Just because one person is Bill Gates or is the most social, is the most precious person in the entire world, we also believe that those other 5 people or millions of people that could die at the expense of saving that one life also has individuality, also has values. And if that's the case, we obviously believe that the government is not in a position to decide whose life is more important and whose life is not. If that's the case context, then we obviously believe that governments cannot make this value judgment to begin with. And therefore, governments are faced with the choice to decide who will bring better good social values and who will bring good social integrity at the end of the day. This leads into my second level of analysis and saying that there's going to be a higher possibility for good social value if you prioritize the higher number of people. Why is that? Because fundamentally, because governments cannot make a choice and do not know the future of that individual, fundamentally we believe on opening government that if the government prioritizes the vast number of people, the millions of people that will be saved under our model, then fundamentally the future of that society can actually progress. The future benefits can actually be derived because fundamentally if numbers count and if the good social values come from that particular number, then obviously there's going to be a higher potential, higher possibility for that good society to go upon that particular benefit. Mr. Speaker, coming back into the introduction, this is a fucking hard choice. We believe that this choice cannot be made by any single individual, but fundamentally if we had to make that choice, we would prioritize the millions of people living in that world, in this room, compared to a serial killer who's killing up people. That is why we are supremely proud to propose.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes, 14 seconds.
I thank the gentleman for his contribution to the debate. So I call for the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the fundamental problem we have with the opening government's case is the very concession that he made to Abel's POI. The fact that he admitted that the state cannot have complete free will to go around killing every single member of society it believes is somehow a threat to just a few extra people that we're talking about. Why is that, Mr. Speaker? Because we're talking about life that we all agree is the fundamental thing that we're here to save. But more importantly, it's because when you kill someone, you can't bring that person back from the dead. Whereas if you engage in the stuff that we already do, such as life imprisonment and other such tactics, when you can actually engage in ensuring that you don't have the future harms that I will outline. So what are my 2 points of rebuttal I want to deal with? First of all, I want to take a look at this idea of whether in fact this priority of the state argument is in fact as legitimate as the Prime Minister points out, and second of all, is it really just a matter of numbers without looking at it in the real world context? Let's first of all look at this idea of the priority of the state. The Prime Minister simply wanted to tell us that there was the state-individual relationship that mandates that we need to curb individual liberties for the sake of security, and as well as ensuring that heinous criminals don't get away with the things they do. Mr. Speaker, we deliberately got rid of the death penalty precisely because we recognized that humanity deserved much better attention from the state than actually engaging in killing them. We saw that using life imprisonment still ensured that we had a reduction in crimes in relation to people committing mass murder, Mr. Speaker. We never saw some sort of correlation as to why the status quo activities that the state does has been unable to ensure the safety of citizens today. What we would tell you, Mr. Speaker, as Abel pointed out, is that when you allow unlimited mass killings, that threat still exists tomorrow. That threat from the terrorists that you wanted to kill today still exists tomorrow, because the same terrorists that you're trying to get rid of, or the crazed criminals you're trying to get rid of, they still exist. You haven't dealt with the underlying causes there in this sort of moment of the hour. But then we turn to this second idea about the matter of numbers. We have to save the most number of people, apparently. Mr. Speaker, the problem with this idea of always going after the most number of people is that you debase your own currency in that the very people you're trying to save. You're trying to tell society that you condemn killing, but in their name you start killing as well. Society does not thank you for doing this when you engage in double-faced attitudes, because ultimately, no thank you. So the state, when it's held responsible to those people, even when you save them, the fact is that you don't look legitimate in their eyes, and other actors as well will come to target the very same citizens you're trying to defend because of the illegitimacy of the state. I will explain that further in my substantive material, which I'll now go on to, Mr. Speaker. No thank you. Mr. Speaker, I have 2 main points I'm going to bring to this House today. First of all, I'm going to tell you about why we never sacrifice our moral principles when it comes to life, why it's highly immoral. But second of all, I'm going to explain to you why in these instances of killing people in the name of saving others actually courts the wrong responses that leads to the threat of the very people you're trying to protect. Mr. Speaker, no thank you. I'm going to tell you first of all in this moral principle, why do we never sacrifice our moral values when, in relation to killing? It comes on 2 levels. First of all, as I've already explained, you're never seen as legitimate when you resort to the same tactic that you're trying to condemn. I'll take you in a moment. We saw in Abu Ghraib in Iraq, where we started killing people in that prison in the name of trying to protect Iraqis. That never got us necessarily the best information, first of all. But leaving that to one side, Mr. Speaker, you killed those same people in the name of fighting other terrorists. It never actually got the support of Iraqis. It was simply seen as an attack on their own individual liberties by the state. It was seen as an overreaction by the state. It wasn't seen as some grateful act by the state to protect Iraqis. Yes, please.
So don't you think all the humanitarian government have obligations and motivations to be a better person and better American?
We fundamentally agree that we need to engage in higher morals. But the problem with engaging in killing people, Mr. Speaker, as I've already said, is you can't bring back those same people from the dead. But more importantly is that when you have blood on your hands, Mr. Speaker, people do not think of you as the high moral guardian that you try and make yourself to be. Why? As I've already explained in Abu Ghraib, but as well as in Afghanistan. You can't achieve people's willingness to follow your orders because you're seen as someone, not as their protector, but as some monster who is there to dictate your lives. In Afghanistan, we have not seen the cooperation of the society in relation to NATO because they're precisely seen not as the protectors when they kill the Al-Qaeda terrorists. They're seen as merely someone who could also kill them. No, thank you. But second of all, when you do this when you engage in this lack of moral principles, when you're doing exactly the same, these particular things, you ultimately court other people to have a reason to do the exact same thing against you. When we saw in Mali, when the French started to kill off these particular, kill off terrorists in Mali when they were coming down, what we saw immediately was the same Al-Qaeda affiliated groups immediately saying France was a legitimate threat and anyone's price on their head could be made, especially against the French president, because they were seen not as some type of liberators of Mali. They were simply seen as now having an excuse to target the so-called protectors of Mali. We think that you've now given the other side a legitimate excuse to target you. This comes on to the second point about courting the wrong response. This comes into three areas, Mr. Speaker. First of all, when you kill off these people, you're effectively engaging in martyrdom. You're making a very powerful statement to these other people that this person now is a martyr for their cause. When Saddam Hussein was killed off, Mr. Speaker, we didn't see people in Iraq dancing in the streets. We saw Sunnis feeling violated, that they were being specifically targeted against, and that's why we saw further years of chaos in Iraq, because people saw now that the state that was supposedly protecting them is a legitimate target that weren't representing their interests. Second of all, you see reprisals in the future that is unexpected. For example, when the US killed off the Al-Qaeda, particularly Saddam Hussein, we saw terrorists in Pakistan immediately engaging in reprise attacks against the Pakistani intelligence agencies and innocent civilians who had nothing to do with the US, merely for the fact that Pakistan was allied with the US. We'd say that you court reprisals attacks in the future that you can't ever calculate, and that is particularly pernicious for the innocents who had nothing to do with it. But third of all, you empower these groups to have propaganda, to fight their wars against you when you tried to kill them off initially. That's why we see right now that we have people in Pakistan willing to join the fight in Afghanistan against NATO, because America is seen as the evil monster. Mr. Speaker, what we're telling you today is that we never compromise our principles, because you never compromise away your moral authority, and you never want to court even worse results.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 20 seconds.
I thank the leader of the for the speech that I taught that the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think this debate is really simple, right? This opening opposition just said killing terrorists is bad. I don't think this debate is about that. This debate is about every time government faces the difficult decisions, what must be their choices, right? If there's a flood around here, and there's one people standing there, we have 100 people standing here, helicopters, where they should go. I think that helicopters must go to save 100 people rather than one people. Don't leave the debate to the terrorists, right? I think Abel has a different ideas and expand the debate, because closing opposition needs to say something more, right? So it's not really about terrorism. With that, I have three questions. First idea is about social contract. Second idea is about terrorists. Because I am generous people, I'm going to engage with these guys anyway. I think this is unfair, what I'm engaging, right? Third idea is about why government have obligations to be a better person, and why our policies make them a better person and better government. So first idea, what is a social contract? The argumentation coming from Prime Minister thoroughly and lazily ignored by opening oppositions. Not even an error. We have a collective security. And these guys said, no, like you can't oppress their people because there's a national security. Yes, Patriot Act is fair because there wasn't any certain benefit. There's uncertainty, right? Maybe Bush lied. But the question is, if we are attacked by Japan, and if I am the citizen of these countries, to save more life, I must go there and engage with Japanese soldiers. That is the solution, and that is the social contract of the government. No, so you need to engage with these ideas, right? Then these guys said heinous crime and like death penalty is massively decreased. I don't think that is true. It is contented, right? A lot of countries killing the prisoners for the betterment of the society and protect the society. I don't think that is the one big solution that Bible's death penalty is bad. If that case is, then I will lose the debate. Secondly, the Taeyeong said life can be quantified, right? More killing means more sins. If I kill one, maybe I got 10 years, but if I kill 100, I'm going to get death penalty or, 30, 300, 500 years, which means government still quantify the importance of life. in the number. And we said why number is important, right? Because government cannot have any moral justification. They cannot decide, right, what value is more important. That is why we need to save more people and provide a better social good to the society, because we have a more possibility, more people provide a more social good to the society. Then let's engage with these guys, right, terrorists. Firstly, these guys said we shouldn't, kill the people because they are terrorists. I don't think that is true. In the case of the Saddam Hussein, in the case of Osama bin Laden, we killed those one big guys to protect all the people. These guys are saying it's bad examples, right? There is a bad consequence rather than it is a bad process. You need to explain to me all the protests cannot be justified. Then he said, and other people have a more reason to do the same thing. And he talked about Mali terrorist organization. No, that's not true. These people just kill these people, even if I don't kill them, right? That is why war started. I don't think these terrorist organizations start to kill people just because French come to your countries. I think that's factually wrong at the first place. But I think people must do this. If you are the citizen of my country and my society, rather than tell yourself and make an excuse, I don't kill anybody and I don't have any choices, and don't make that excuse, but actively kill one people, save more life, because that makes you better people. I'm going to explain further in my first argument. Do you guys have any view? Yes.
Look, in the real world that you're talking about, we are talking about killing these groups of terrorists that you're trying to save, and they will engage in the reprisals attacks against innocents that we can't foresee because you're trying to do it in the name of saving some people.
No, that is why I say there's two case scenarios, right? Like natural disaster, like if I'm a bank robberies, right? And I try to make like killing all you guys, and I think government have obligations, right, to kill me like snipers, right? Because 100 minutes later, when we talk to each other, the sniper can kill me. Because government have obligations to protect these guys, right? But I talk to you guys, in the case of the terrorists, we killed Osama bin Laden because we actually and sincerely believe killing that bad motherfuckers save more life and more people. That is why our policy is better than your obviously bad and one specific short-sighted, narrow-minded policy. And moving on, my last argument, why our policy make the government and people better life? I think current government, we quantify the life, right? Saving more people is a good thing, and killing more people is a bad thing. Like I said, 1 people killing and 100 people killing, there's a different punishment, right? Assume that is true. If I just see more people die, I don't think I can free from any obligations to be punished, right? If I don't save 100 people, which means I killed the 100 people too, but I saved 1 people. But in terms of our calculation, the government quantifying the life, that person is bad because he killed more than 100 people, right? Like I said before, everybody in government have obligations to be a better person and better organizations, right? So don't make any excuse, right? Maybe you can continue the excuse when you go back home, because I didn't do nothing. I do nothing. I did nothing. But 100 people is died. I don't have any choices. That makes me a better person. I don't think that is a good idea. If you not engage with saving 100 people, you have partial obligations to killing those people. That is why under our policy, government and people can be better. I don't want to accept the excuse, right? I do nothing, but I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think that makes your idea, your life, your family, and better than before. Then why government must do this? Because government shouldn't, accept the fact that there's something make you feel better. Government will do the bad thing if that brings a better utility and brings a better protection of the society in our life. Like the case of flood cases, like the case of natural disaster. That is why we must be a better government. That is why we must be a better person. In the status quo, if you are government and you quantify the life, and if you think that is the notion that we must keep at the first place, you must actively kill one, save more life. Because at the end of the day, that makes our humanity better. Mr. Speaker, and everybody who is sitting in these rooms, right? This debate shouldn't be about terrorists. If there is a debate, CAP is going to talk about terrorists. Because they don't, that is why I don't think it is nice idea to limit the debate. What government is going to choose when they face the difficult choices? Saving 1 or saving 100? If you want to be better, if you want to progress our humanity, you must kill 1 to save 100, even if that makes you feel guilty.
7 minutes and 15 seconds.
I thank the speaker for his speech. I call on the opposition to the public.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think NC needs to revisit his English lesson because he needs to read the motion carefully. It calls for killing one in order to save many. Their examples of natural disasters is merely letting someone die when you choose to save the 100th person rather than going out and actively kill that one person in order to save the 100th person, right? That is why the context of today's debate has to be about terrorism. Because whether you waterboard, you kill and torture the terrorists to extract information, or just simply to kill heads like Osama bin Laden in order to save the American society or the world at large, right? That is the context of today's debate, and we think that's the debate that should occur. So, briefly dealing with most rebuttals integrated, I'd just like to point out one thing in terms of like moral calculus, right? We think killing is fundamentally different because it changes people's calculus and the extent to which these people who suffered the death of their friends, of their families, are willing to sacrifice. That killing means that you send a signal to these parties that you are willing to go to the extent of murder, such that in future these parties are willing to engage in the same format, such as killing your people who you cannot control because they can always launch rockets, or they can always try to transport nuclear arms into your country and attack you, or they can always try to attack American soldiers as retaliation tactics. That is why, when you kill one person in the short term, trying to save that 100th person, you do not get that benefit. Because in the long term, you create the incentive for these individuals to engage in the murderous tactics, which we tell you, if you engage in, let's say, life imprisonment, they won't react like that, right? That's why these terrorists, like for example, when the dispute between Israel and Palestine for Gilad Shalit, they call for the release of the prisoners, not the killing of him. So we think that killing fundamentally changes things, right? But we also say that at the end of the day, when you kill one person, you don't solve the problem. That was not engaged by NC, right? If you look at bin Laden, who was the head of Al-Qaeda, their belief as an association is this: you can kill one of us, but you just can't kill all of us. Because the idea is that we can always retaliate, and that once you are not on guard, we will take you down to your knees, right? That is why we tell you on our side, if you do not engage in those tactics, that's a great thing. 2 points of substantive material. So, firstly, false sense of security as a result of one killing many. Secondly, on humanity. So, in terms of false sense of security, we have two lines of analysis here, right? We firstly say that the threat at the end of the day still exists for 4 reasons. Firstly, killing of one person is just a branch to an operation. Look at the fact that Iran, right? US and Israel has killed off 4 nuclear scientists in an attempt to stop them from being able to nuclearize and proliferate. That didn't work. First thing. But second thing, you don't solve the issue of nuclear proliferation, because once they have the technology, they can always have the capacity to move towards that. But once you kill them, you give them a legitimate cause to say, right, you killed us, therefore we'll engage in the same murderous tactics, right? So, second thing, you are unaware of the scale of the operation. It only came to light recently that the Taliban is now gaining huge control in North Africa. You are simply unaware of the scale of these terrorist activities. That's why killing one person, at the time of your estimation, you are unable to fairly take into account of the risks that is involved in killing that one person and the repercussions that will follow from that murder, right? Thirdly, we tell you encourages violence as a means of resolution, right? We think that when you kill Saddam Hussein as a result of having huge amounts of people rallying on the streets of Iraq, you allow people to use violence as a reason to retaliate against your state, and the threat doesn't exist, the threat doesn't cease, doesn't disappear, it perpetuates and goes on. That's a bad thing. And the fourth thing is, you don't put a stop to things. Look at the fact that we killed Osama bin Laden. Look at where we are. We are still in a war against terror. That doesn't solve the issue. It's a false claim to say you killed that one person. At the end of the day, the many that you say will eventually be saved because you will have to continuously to kill more and more and more, and that is unhumane. No. But second line of analysis, the rhetoric that kills one saves many perpetuates an idea that the state can correctly project the security situation of that state, right? We think that when the death of Osama bin Laden, you see people like walking to the center of New York celebrating his death, is an indication that the war against terror, according to the citizens, is over. There are 4 reasons why it's bad. Firstly, you simplify the issue to the fact that the war is against one man instead of, in fact, against terror. So we think that that simplification is bad. But secondly, you have citizens incorrectly understanding the true issue at hand, which we think is a problem. Thirdly, the premise of most operations that these people will now think is to kill one man, the leader of an operation, which we tell you has never been the idea, because you make it even more plausible for the state to say, wow, we're going to kill this one person, so you should allow this war to happen. It makes war much more easy. And fourthly, we think that the war is not over.
Coming back to the real debate, if you say that letting a person die is not killing, why do you punish negligence?
Well, we think negligence is a completely different ambit in today's debate. We think negligence often involves a duty of care, which is different from, let's say, your duty of care to a terrorist in Pakistan who's now currently in the States. Negligence is something different, right? So, secondly, humanity, right? 2 lines of analysis here. Firstly, no one should have the right to make such decisions. Contrary to what opening government claims that government should be able to put a value to life, we don't think that the government has a right to measure and put a label to the value that life carries. But more importantly, government is often vested with ulterior motives. For example, the entry into the war of Iraq was primarily based on hatred and revenge against the 9/11 attacks, right? Look at the fact that one of the senators who were Democrat who authorized the CIA document that you do not need to really assess whether there were weapons of mass destruction in that country. He hated the Muslims. That's why he wanted the war. We think that that's dangerous, right? Second thing, this is engaging with their numbers argument, which is the desensitization. We think that using numbers or figures like you kill 1,000 men stops our ability of appreciating the essence of humanity. Why is that a problem? We don't think choice is being presented to them, because the point at which they see I'm only killing one man, I'm only brutally slaughtering and shooting that one man as a figure of 1, you cannot understand what goes on to that person. You cannot understand what are the tactics you employ. You merely are desensitized because you're detached from the situation. And we think that that detachment is problematic because you stop these individuals from having the ability to appreciate the humanity, and hence why it's wrong to kill one to save many. For all those reasons, we're very proud to oppose.